If you've been keeping up with international political news, you'd know that the Spanish political corruption scene is on fire right now. The president is pushing through laws to benefit pro-terrorists and separatists because he needs their support to stay in power. People from his party, including his wife and brother, are on trial for shady deals and illegal transactions with the Venezuelan vice president, involving 68 million euros, as well as trafficking millions of irregular face masks sold at outrageous prices during the pandemic. There were also multi-million euro bailouts for companies that were already in ruins. It all seems to point to political interests and money being funneled into their own pockets. This all provides the background needed to understand what happened when I submitted my video game Moons of Darsalon for a government grant funded by European money, 5 million euros in total. Even though it's not directly related, this is simply how things operate in Spain. And I don't just mean under the current leftist party in power, though they may be taking it to new extremes. I'd say that corruption in grants is an endemic issue that has always existed. I'm not going to name any names, judges, evaluators, administration staff, or other video game studios. But if anyone wants to verify the truth of what I'm saying, this information is out there on the internet for those who know how to dig. Let's get started. On April 24, 2018, the Spanish government, through the agency Red.es, launched the Impulso al Sector del Videojuego C003 ATD grants. These grants had a total of 5 million euros from European funds, with a maximum of 150,000 euros per project. The main focus was on innovation, but other factors were also evaluated, broken down into 4 categories. P1, innovation. P2, project quality. P3, previous release of another video game. P4, work team. Dr. Cucho Games, basically me, submitted Moons of Darsalon for the grant. As a solo developer, I was super hesitant to apply because I knew I'd score low on P3, previous release, and P4, work team. However, Moons of Darsalon had been in development for almost 4 years and was fairly well known in the Spanish indie community. It had won 3 awards for Best Video Game and 1 for Best Mechanics. A few colleagues insisted that I should apply, pointing out that the 2 most heavily weighted criteria, each with 35%, were the ones where Moons of Darsalon stood out. P3 and P4 only carried 15% each, and besides, P1, innovation, was also a disqualifying criterion. If you didn't score at least 4 out of 10, the project would be dismissed, and they wouldn't even evaluate the rest of the points. And believing that Moons of Darsalon really stood out in that area, I decided to go for it, hoping that a high score in P1 would offset the low scores in P3 and P4. You're watching some clips from the trailer, so you can see I'm not making this up. To be honest, back then, the game didn't have pixelated 3D models. There were some pre-renders, but they weren't as smooth or complex as what you see now. But that doesn't matter much, because the video game project we submitted had to be entirely text-based. You could send supporting visuals, but they warned us that those might not even be considered, and later we found out that's exactly what happened. How do you evaluate a video game with just text? The simple answer is, you can't. But that's no problem for government officials, because they never actually intend to properly evaluate the projects or companies they're showering with money. Otherwise, why did the Ministry of Transport, led by José Luis Ábalos at the time, decide to spend 12.5 million euros to buy 5 million face masks from Soluciones de Gestión, which wasn't even a supplier of medical materials, and had basically done nothing before the pandemic, with 0 euros in revenue for the previous fiscal year? You'd think that if in the grant I applied for, where the most I could get was 150,000 euros, one of the scoring criteria was prior experience, then in these contracts to buy face masks worth millions of euros, the government would also care about prior experience, right? Ooh, well, but let's get back to video games. On May 24, 2018, while applicants were submitting their projects, the electronic headquarters of Red.es shut down for 24 hours and came back online on the 25th. We didn't know exactly what the problem was. We all thought it was because the site couldn't handle the traffic. But the real reason is way more shocking. Stick with me, because you're going to be blown away. On June 22, 2018, they publicly announced the selection of 2 video game experts from the professional sector and 2 more from the academic sector. These guys, together with 5 more people from Red.es, would form the evaluation committee responsible for reviewing, evaluating, and scoring the video game projects. On April 5th, 2019, the results were published. 284 applicants, and only 36 were beneficiaries. Another 38 were put on the wait list, just in case one of the beneficiaries couldn't accept the grant. Rare, but it can happen. One was rejected for issues with the legal paperwork, and 209 rejected because they scored below 4 in innovation, which meant they were automatically disqualified. This was seriously suspicious. You've got to keep in mind that failing someone like this was convenient for the evaluators because it meant they didn't have to keep evaluating the rest. Of course, there wasn't enough money for everyone, only for around 30-something projects, depending on how much each one asked for, since not all requested the full $150,000. But you'd expect that the ones who didn't get the grant would have missed out because their total score across all categories, innovation, team quality, previous work, and project quality, was lower than those who scored higher and won. But that's not what happened. That's 74% of the projects were rejected. A total of 209 projects were disqualified based purely on the first category, innovation. Only a few managed to score above 4 out of 10 in innovation, got evaluated in the other categories, and ended up on the wait list because their total scores weren't that high. So, if you were an evaluator and wanted to make your life easier, all you had to do was select 36 projects until you hit the €5 million budget. Leave a few on the waitlist, and wipe out the rest of the poor bastards with a random innovation score below 4. And what's even more suspicious is that they only published the number for each application, hiding the name of the video game and the name of the applicant studio. It's important to remember that this is a public grant. Spanish citizens have the right to know where public money goes. And it's completely unusual for this information not to be published, just like in every other grant, whether it's Spanish or European money. And as proof, here's an example. This is another video game grant, awarded in 2023 by the Spanish government. But this one isn't organized by DEV or Red.es. It's handled directly by the Ministry of Culture. And look at that. The names of the applicant companies and the names of the winning projects are right there. I wonder if Red.es hides this information. Now, if someone were to think badly, which I'm not, God forbid I have dark thoughts, it might cross their mind that they're hiding it because they don't want anyone to connect the dots and draw inconvenient conclusions about where the money is really going. But I'm afraid we'll have to leave it here for now. In the next episode, we'll see that the innovation score Moons of Darsalon received was 2.67 out of 10, and that every score issued by the evaluation committee was a multiple of 0.33, which would be statistically impossible if they had actually averaged the scores from all evaluators. And there are even more surprising events in this legal process that dragged on for over 4 years. Today, I won't tell you to subscribe if you don't want to miss it, because I get the feeling you're like me, the kind of person who, when pressured to do something, feels an intense urge to do the opposite. So, if you don't want to miss the next episode, don't subscribe.